Babylon. All over me. Whoa. Let's take it right back to 92, when you first began. Tell us about what was going on at that time and where you decided that you had to make tunes yourself.
Well, it was meeting Mickey Finn, who you interviewed as well.
Yeah.
We did a tune called Some Justice, and that went big.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment I thought, right, okay, I'm going to do music, try and do it for a full time.
As a on a professional level.
Yeah, and for the next 5 years I earned nothing. And then Jungle was born.
Is that when you set up Aphrodite recording? 92, was it?
Yeah, I started up Aphrodite Recordings in 92 as an outlet for my own stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And I was, releasing stuff. But it was a tune called A-Zone, Calling the People, which I did.
Right,
and that kind of like drew me into the jungle scene, which kicked off in 94.
Right,
And then things went very well for me for about the next 4 years.
We Enter was that 95?
We Enter was 1993.
Was it that early?
92, 93.
Right. I must admit, for the record, I absolutely love that tune. That's like in my top 5.
Oh, really?
Top 10 tunes
Really?
of all time. Yeah, we got that absolute
that's
classic.
a good one. The strings at the start.
Yeah,
I love it.
I love the voice and the beat as well. Was the beat
Well,
that?
at the time, I was toing and froing with I think Busy Bee, Foul Play, because there was a few people still producing on Amigas, and I was producing on the Amigas. You can always
being with you.
Yeah, and no, not with me, but
right.
I never met Foul Play, but I was kind of competing with them because their beats were going all over the place, and so were mine, and so were Busy's. Because we worked in a completely different way to all the other producers on the scene.
Yeah, right.
We were into this chopping up beats and all that kind of mad thing, and that was my forte, and that's what I loved.
Are you conscious to make tunes that I call DJ friendly, where you had the chops in the tune, and it was really nice to, I'm a DJ myself, so it was really nice to have them sort of chops in the tune where you could bring it backwards and forwards. You just wasn't so down the line, tunnel vision.
Well, it's not just that. It's not just that. It's music has beginning, ends, middles, and everything. All kinds of music, pop, classical, drum and bass, everything. All goes in 4s, 16s, 8s, 32s, and each phrase is always 32 bars long, and so each proper change is always 32 bars. So you have to do things when they naturally want them to do.
But the way that you were structuring tunes wasn't happening back then. The way that you had the sort of breaks, especially like, I've mentioned it before, Mickey from like Do It Now, them sort of, that wasn't happening back then.
No.
Like Mickey from was saying, you had like the off beats as well, so when you tried to mix it in from the 4s, it wouldn't actually kick on the 4s, it wouldn't actually hit on the 4s.
But it felt right.
Yeah, but your tunes, you could in and out, and you could have fun. Have fun with it. You could drop it 2 or 3 times. Go like dim, 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 do it now, and that sort of thing. You can drop that 2 or 3 times, and people love it by the time it drops in.
But that's how phrases and music is. When you hear a lot of producers, they do the same thing. You have that kind of like catch at the end of every 16 bars, or catch at the end of every 32 bars, or roll into a change or a drop.
What led you into that though? How did you? Because like I said, the tunes weren't really going in that direction at that time. So what led you to think that?
That's how music naturally should be for me. I mean, I was studying music from the age of 4. My mum was a pianist, and so when I started making music, I just took the same music theory I'd learned all my life and plopped it into drum and bass.
And it works absolutely.
Yeah. But it's what feels naturally.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it feels naturally right. But because I'm a DJ myself, I always want to properly at the beginning.
Exactly.
So string starts and things like that, I've never ever done. I've always added a hi-hat or added a sparse beat, so
something that you can always pick up.
So you can always mix it. Yeah. That's my personal.
I think that's what set you apart from what was going on, because especially with like Do It Now, for instance, that was late '91, early '92. Is that right?
Yeah, very.
And you had like things like Pandemonium, which was more or less impossible to mix.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and you had tunes like that, which, and you also like Sounds of the Future, what you call it, Future Sounds of London.
Yes.
Which is almost impossible to mix from the start as well. So you incorporated, as far as I'm concerned, my personal opinion, you incorporated where, like I said before, it brings back the fun in the mixing, and you want to drop that again and again and again, and you wanted really that feel about the track.
It was never intentional, it was just felt right at the time.
So let's move on to like 94, 95, when, you know, Jungle was really big at that time.
Oh, yeah,
it's like,
I mean, Jungle was never been bigger than it was in '94.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was the biggest thing. It was the biggest music in the whole of Britain by far.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know.
Do you think that was something that people were waiting for?
It was like the same explosion that happened in '88, '89 when
with the acid house,
raving, and then '91 with the hardcore.
Yeah.
That same explosion happened with Jungle in '94.
Yeah, true.
And I'm not quite sure if we've had a musical explosion on the same level since. Actually,
funny enough, we had an interview with Ray Keith a few weeks ago, and he was saying, like, you know, where it is now, it's had to go back to where it was originally, because it's just gone that far where people are not really feeling it no more. It's not really drum and bass.
Well, a lot of problems with some of the drum and bass I get is it's not drum and bass, it's drums.
Yeah.
And or
drums and mid-range.
Drums and mid-range noises. So bassline is what makes you dance. It's what we love. And so it's added to that fractioning of the scene. Now you have a lot of bass lines are in dubstep, and that's great. And now the hard kick drums are creeping into dubstep. I've noticed that. And bass lines are kind of creeping back in. But I've got to be honest, the best thing about the scene, the whole music scene at the moment, is it is so varied in what you can play and what you can get away with. And not only that, you can draw on 12, 15 years of classic tunes.
Yeah, that's the best thing about it. That's what I
And you can mix them in, drop them in, and people know it. I think that is really, really healthy. I love that. I think DJing's got a bit more development to do, because people still haven't got used to the whole kind of where we're going from here now, and some of them using computers, some are using CDs, and there's lots
How
of
do you feel about that? Because I'm a vinyl DJ myself, so I'm going to just put it in the head, I'm biased. I don't mind people using CDJs, no qualms about it whatsoever, but I think it's lost the art, it's lost the art form of being an actual DJ with vinyl. How do you feel about that?
I love mixing vinyl, and it's what I learnt on, and it's what I've done for many, many years. So it feels natural, it feels second nature to mix vinyl. If I could, I would mix vinyl all the time. But the problem is, now it's impossible to do that. You arrive at venues where no one has mixed vinyl in that club for 4 months, so they have to get the 1210s out the cupboard, put them on. God knows where they're going to find some needles. They find the needles, they stick them in, they don't sound check them.
It almost sounds like a twin tape deck.
Yeah, they don't sound check them, and when you get there, all of a sudden the crowd fills up and there's lots of girls that are going dancing in front of you. You can't mix an egg on these things. You know, you put your needle on, they go, or there's feedback coming out. So at the moment, I would say it's only 1 in 10 systems where you can actually DJ with vinyl anyway.
I think that's, I do feel that's pretty poor in our standards, because coming from like the old school, that's where it all came from. If it wasn't for the turntables as such, and the scene as it is now wouldn't be as it is.
When you play on a good system, tonight the system was good, and the sound engineer was good. when you play on a good system with a good sound engineer and you set it up right, vinyl always sounds better than anything else. I was pulling down the vinyl and I was pulling down the bass lines on the vinyl tonight to match the level of the bass lines on the CDs.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I was having to take the thing down because otherwise the vinyl would sound too powerful compared to everything else.
And that you do lose a lot of clarity. You do lose of what you actually hear and what you should be hearing or feeling, for that matter.
Well, the problem is with CDs is that they've
compacted.
Everything's compacted, and you're pushing the digital range so far that there's no dynamics left in it.
Yeah, I understand.
Whereas with vinyl, it has been mastered and it has been, but there's still a lot of dynamics in there.
There is.
So you're never pushing. You're never distorting.
So has it become lazy? Has it become more, what's the word for it, more metallic?
Some music, yeah, it does sound a little more metallic. It's harder on the ears as well, because on vinyl, everything, there's no music above 12,000 hertz.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Whereas with CDs it goes up to 21.
Yeah, 21, 24,
yeah, you've got all the dog whistles in there, and that's supposed to be harder on the ears, give you a bit of headache. But to be honest with you, I mean, you can talk about it forever, but it's not going to change. You know, we're in the digital realm now, and but the most exciting thing about the digital DJing is it changes you as a DJ. Whereas before you had the pieces of vinyl, so you were limited to what the producer made. So you got the vinyl and that's what you had to mix with. Now you get given digital. You can get that digital and think, actually, I don't like that section with the vocal,
right,
so you chop it out. I want to add my own drum roll into that bit, so you do. In fact, I think it sounds better with the bass line from that record over there, so I'll take the bass line out and add the bass line from over there onto that, and all of a sudden you've got something that you like and you want to DJ, but is also exclusive. And that's kind of how DJing has changed.
It's more or less taken over the dub plates. In a fashion.
Yeah, in a fashion, but it's a lot more immediate because
more personal. It's a lot more personal now.
Yeah. And like for instance, on a few occasions, I like 3 or 4 tracks that come through, but I don't like all of them, so I just gel them together, make a mega mix, play that instead, and then you can mix something over the top of that, which kind of it's changed DJing. And so you get a lot more impact points, and you get a lot more. You can add rolls, and you can do a lot more things with the music because it's digital. Whereas when you had a piece of vinyl, you were very stuck with that piece of vinyl. If something annoys you with a digital track, for instance, if one particular breakdown annoys you because you never mix it right, because there's no beats over it, you just load it into your Logic Audio and add beats, and then play it again, and there you are.
So I suppose there, in a sense, in the fashion, it has really not just opened up the doors for people, but where people don't really have to, not think too hard, but they don't really have to explore the music as such. If they don't like say, if they don't like a particular part, change it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether other DJ producers are doing it, but I'm pretty sure it's going on a lot more, where you're experimenting a lot more with the music that you have.
Service is power.
So let's talk a bit about the actual software and the hardware that you were using to build these tunes. You was talking to Mickey Finn before, you were saying that you're using 2 Amigas and very much adapt to them 2 Amigas. You find that's where it is now. It's like once you understand one piece of software, you don't have to move on, and you can stay
you'll see there's a kind of, and you'll feel it as well. If you look at just drum and bass, say for instance, you'll see there was a lot of successful producers in the 90s that went kind of flat when we went into the new millennium, and it's like, well, I'm sure they can still produce music, but why didn't it sound good? It's because it took me at least 2 or 3 years to realise how different working with digital music is to working with analog. Analog, I knew where I was going. I could push it into the red, keep it there, take the thing off. I didn't have to use compressors. You could just maximise everything already, and then change the waveform and do various things in your editing. But as soon as you went to the digital range, all those rules added distortion. Practically everything I was doing would add distortion and make the music sound poor. So it took me ages to kind of get around, like, what's going wrong? Why doesn't it sound good? And you'd push it. And of course, less is more with the digital range. Andy had the lower it was.
Is that where your tunes start becoming more minimal? With like listening to like the later tunes like 2005 and upwards, it seem a lot more minimal than, you know, from like tunes like We Enter, for instance, which was very in your face and very relaxing at the same time.
I don't know, there's a lot more dynamic range going on in the tunes now. I mean, when a bass line comes in, it used to be just a bass line. It used to be just the area up to 80 hertz. Now, now a bass line means a whole range of frequencies hitting you hard in the head, and they can't mix around. And there are some very good producers out there who
is really impressive.
I was thinking of Modified Motion. Practically everything by him at the moment is always the loudest thing in my set. Whatever you do, and it sounds loud, and he's got that kind of separation down to an art, you know.
So let's talk about where you are now. 2010. What's going on with Aphrodite?
I'm just building a new studio. I've just moved house, so I'm building a new studio. I will endeavour to go back in the studio. I've had about 1.5 years break.
Got touring?
No, I'm always touring. I was more raising a family. I've got 2 kids, 3 and a 4-year-old, and a bit more spending time with them. It's not the first time I've taken a couple of years break from producing. I've done it about 2 or 3 times in my career. I just love DJing. I was always a DJ first. I love DJing, but at the moment there's enough music that I love to not be wanting to kind of make other music that I want to hear. You know, that's when you get the bug for producing, because you can't find the records in your DJ bag that you want to play, and if you can't find them, you've got to make them.
Without a doubt. So what can we expect for 2010 for 2011? Are we going to get an album from you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do another album. I don't know if I can. The albums are very hard. They're very hard work. But what I like about the new scene, I love the melody, I love the bass, I love the clarity of the mix.
That's one thing. That's a good point, actually. Do you think it's become too clinical? Do you think it's too clean to beat drum and bass?
No, I think I've got DATs at home of old tunes from 94, 95, and they just sound just as clean, if not cleaner, than some of the tunes that are going on now. There's a lot of things going on in the tunes now. Before, sometimes there was only 3 or 4 things. I mean, if you think of Just For You London as a good example, I think you can count the samples in that tune. I think it's 5. And that's that. On Congress 40 Miles is another one. It's a lot of 5 or 6 samples. Or 5 or 6 elements that made everything. Now you have tunes with, you know, go in Logic and they go down and down and down and down and down, loads and loads and loads and loads of things, and endless amounts of plugins.
Is that overkill, or do you find that's overkill?
It can be. It can be.
You know, tunes like you just mentioned there, you know, Just For You London, that's absolute classic.
Yeah.
Very little to it. We Are E's another one.
Yeah.
You know, they are absolute classic. You know, you can listen to them over and over again, and you swore you never heard everything twice. So what's the difference then?
I miss the break beats out of drum and bass at the moment. The kind of kick drum snare thing is
a bit overplayed.
I wouldn't say it's overplayed. It's still very danceable, but I want something more. You know, a lot of the breaks are very in the background now. I'd like to have the break much more in your face.
Yeah, it's become very filtered now, hasn't it?
Yeah. I'm like a big breakbeat, right, you know, big amen right there.
Well, we went down to Great Keith when we went to Great Keith, and he treated us to a few tracks there, and that was like, he brought it right back to like the 95, 96 era, and it's massive aiming loops, that horrible bass, you know, it's like, oh, you're just like, where's that been? You want that back again.
And groovy bass lines, danceable bass lines.
Yeah, very much so. DJ market.
Yeah, sometimes you don't need so much impact, and it's all about groove. You know, Sub Focus is proof of that. His tunes are very groovy, very exceptionally well produced. Very groovy and very nice, you know.
So, talk about 2011 for you. Can we expect that? I'm going to keep pushing this until we get an answer, a definitive answer from you.
I am going back in the studio with Mickey in about 3 o'clock. As soon as my new studio is built, I have about 5 or 6 projects all lined up. Singers and all sorts of things. So
personally, I can't wait because you want to be all-time favourite.
Cheers, man.
All-time, like I said, your tune, We Enters in my top 5, definitely.
It was the B line. It was the B line.
Yeah, without a doubt.